don't think Aaron and I fully comprehended how much of a character that is until we met you. We got to know you. We're like, oh my God, it's a completely different guy.
Charlie Cox can see.
Hello and welcome to IGN's FanFest discussion about Daredevil Born Again, which I'm very excited about. So guys, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So Charlie and Vincent, I'm going to start with you guys in terms of when the Netflix show ended, did you think you'd ever be back as these characters, especially in this capacity with a new show and everything?
Well, we actually had a very different experience as it pertains to this. So I was convinced we were done. And, when we got that phone call in 2018, I moved on emotionally, obviously being quite sad about the whole thing. But Vince and I would talk occasionally, and he was convinced that at some point we would get a phone call and we'd be back. And I would get off the phone and think that he was crazy. When I heard from Kevin Feige in 2020, I was shocked, blown away.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought that, we all knocked it out of the park with the Netflix show. My sons turned me on to all these Avenger movies that the MCU was making, and I just figured there must be a bunch of clever people over there. They're knocking out of the park every movie. Why wouldn't they recognize good stuff when they see it?
Justin and Aaron, when the show starts, Matt has actually put away the suit. He's not Daredevil anymore. Can you talk a little bit about the thinking behind that? Like, why is he not Daredevil anymore?
Yeah, the entire season, he and also in some ways Fisk is denying part of their true selves, right? And they're trying to work within a system. And so there's an extremely pivotal event that happens that causes him to put it away. And the event has to be huge. It has to be incredibly important because it's going to change a core piece of like who he is. And so, we wanted to make sure that we told that story right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the prior show on Netflix being genuinely the masterpiece that it is, to us, one of the reasons why that was because you guys really did achieve making these guys feel human. There was consequence to everything. And it wasn't just in the drama, it wasn't just in the tragedy, it was in the consequence of violence. And so to start off the show with the ultimate act of violence and how that grief ripples out to the rest of it seemed like the perfect way to kick off this continuation of the spirit of that.
Yeah. And this show is, because you guys obviously have done Moon Knight and Loki, which were obviously MCU shows, but more traditionally superhero-y. Like, obviously Daredevil is always more grounded in reality. Was it a kind of a big change for you to have to jump into something like this?
No, we kind of took to it like ducks in water because, in our indie film world, we're very often telling a story that's a two-hander, and it's very much about like the stakes of those two people, And so for us, we were really excited where the stakes, of course, they're sky high, but they're emotional. There really is what's going to happen to these two people and the people that they love and care about. And of course, there's the stakes of the city of New York and all of that. But the reason you're there is not worrying about these buildings. You're worrying about the people within them. And that came really naturally to us. The idea of not having supernatural stakes felt great.
Sure.
Yeah. Everything these guys are saying to you right now is just total nonsense. No. Everything they're saying to you right now is why I love them as directors. They're like my favorite directors ever now, and they are just incredible. And that's because they think
you haven't worked with any good directors.
Yeah, right. The guy who works with Kubrick.
I mean, honestly, though, it was really important to Charlie and I to get incredible writers, incredible directors. I think that anybody would be lucky to have these two at the helm of anything they're doing. Yeah. It really. I never had to worry about a thing. I knew that when they were directing, all I had to do was show up, do my shtick. They would tell me if I was getting it wrong. I'd get it right. And that's it. That's it.
All right,
he just showed up. That's what's happened. Yeah.
This is going to get really cheesy, so I'm going to love it on this. But this should be said, is like the challenge of this show for us was not that it was grounded and that it was more human than other superhero content, but really it was that the bar was set so high with the Netflix show and you have such an admiration for it, you have such a respect for it, and going into this it needs to reach that bar, and a big, obviously huge part of that is the characters and the work you guys did on that. And not just like the honor of like being able to like collaborate with you guys on that or just see it or ask you guys questions about it, but there probably won't be another time in our lives we're going to walk into something that already has this amazing legacy, and you guys already, two of the best living actors already have these characters figured out for how many years? 15
decades,
years?
yeah.
10 years. And you guys already have every little nuance figured out. You've lived with it for so long. That's a huge opportunity, and it's also a lot of pressure to get it right. I remember when we were on Moon Knight with Ethan Hawke in Moon Knight, and he was talking about the work that you did. Yes, he's like my best friend, Vincent. He's like, I have such an admiration for what he's done with his character on Daredevil that I feel like here on Moon Knight, if we can capture that spirit, that ambition of doing something like that will be in good shape. And he would motivate us by telling about your successes here.
Yeah.
But also, so when you've played a character for this long, one of the dangers is that directors come in, they don't feel like they can tell us things. And the truth is we don't want that. We want input. We want to see, you easily can kind of forget or misinterpret a moment or a scene or forget where you're coming from. And it's really important to have directors that can, find that balance between honoring, respecting what you bring to the character, but also, identifying areas where maybe we could try something different, and maybe there's something here that you haven't quite seen. And when you find that collaboration, it's kind of priceless.
Sure. Yeah.
And what's interesting is I think our earliest conversations were just trying to find you had to kind of spoil your process a bit for us. You had to tell us your character's secrets.
Right.
But once we understood those and what your pain and pleasure principles were and all of that, it felt like once we knew that, our job was to just capture that honestly, and then we could all play around, and we could push in one direction or another, because we're not making like a base misunderstanding of like, is this scene scary, or not, right. And that was like so helpful, as those early conversations of all the groundwork you guys have. You might even think it's obvious, and it's not. It's very deeply buried in there, and we're able to kind of run along with a camera after that.
Charlie, please don't take this the wrong way, and this may sound really silly, but what's so funny is that obviously you play an American in the show. I don't think Aaron and I fully comprehended how much of a character that is until we met you. Got to know you. We're like, oh my God, it's a completely different guy.
That's so funny.
That's funny. Yeah. That's a compliment. He's not going to take that.
Charlie Cox can see.
When people ask me about the character and how he's different from me, the thing I always talk about is like, in real life, I'm like such a people pleaser, and I don't like anyone feeling uncomfortable and stuff. And what's so fun about playing Matt is he doesn't give a what people think. Yeah. He will tell you exactly how it is and let you handle your own feelings, and it's actually quite freeing.
The only thing is, you do have that heavy heart of darkness and deep dark past. Same thing.
Vincent, so Fisk seems to have stepped away from his life of crime. Is it fair to say that? I mean, I've only seen the first two. Is it fair to say that's true? That he's
It's not fair to say that.
Okay.
It's nice to say it, and I think he felt the same way. I think he was trying to live in the daylight, and I think he'll continue to try, but I think the struggle gets harder and harder, and but the guy is on a mission. His mission is to stretch out his reach as far as it will go until he's stopped somehow. And he's accomplishing that in this first new season. There's nothing but badness that's going to happen from it.
Okay.
Yeah,
he is the kingpin of crime ultimately, right? Okay. So when we start off the first 15 minutes or so, which don't involve Fisk quite yet, but it really does feel
15 minutes is okay.
You can handle that, right?
16.
It really does feel like the original show in terms of, Foggy and Karen and Matt are back together. How intentional was that for you three in terms of trying to maintain or bring back the feel of the Netflix show, even though knowing that this show is going to be something different and move in other directions, of course. Were you really working to try to bring that feeling back for fans of the Netflix show?
one of the things that is so admirable about the Netflix show is the way that it feels. It kind of has a really specific tone. It's really hard to hit because it's about people and it also is about heroism. And often those two things start feeling arch if you start doing it wrong, you know? And so getting the feeling that you have in the very beginning of like a warm hug, right? Of seeing the characters we love back together and seeing that they've evolved in some ways and trying to get that out of the way, like what happened in the last 6 years. It was really important because it is called Born Again and we're going to blow all that apart. You know, like it is a new story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's no secret that there was a kind of a slight shift in direction halfway through. One of the things that we'd tried to do early on, which we have all discussed and we totally understand that an admirable thing to try and do was do something a bit different. We're lucky that we work for a studio and we work for bosses who, A, were willing and excited to do that, and also able to see when it wasn't quite working and pivot. One of the things with the show in its first iteration was to kind of distance ourselves a little bit from the history, just a little bit, maybe just to not reference it as much. And so when the pivot was made and these guys were brought in to help us bring all the previous shot material together with new material that had been written and was being added, was to tie the history back into the show. And so we, doing that early on in the first episode, in the new pilot that Dario wrote, our showrunner, was, you know, one of the first things that was talked about and needed. It was felt, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
It's really a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck with the season
Thank
and
you so
season
much.
2.